Hi, everybody. I'm Melinda Gallant, and I want to welcome you to another Cape Conversations. Oh, we've got a great guest today. She's our state senator, Sen Moran, and we're going to talk about a variety of issues that affect all of us here on the Cape. So come along. Let's have another Cape Conversation. Hi, everybody. I'm Melinda Gallant, and I have a wonderful guest with me today. Not only is she just an expert on policy and taking good care of our district here on Cape Cod, but she's also a nice person. Sen Moran, hi.
Thank you, Melinda. Appreciate being here.
Oh, I'm so excited you're here because you always have a lot to talk about and a lot to tell us. So what's going on in Sen Moran's life?
So, big stuff. We fully anticipate that the legislature will bring the child care bill forth that we've been working on for a very long time, and I'm so excited to really move the sort of the foundation of our youngest folks forward to a more healthy beginning.
Okay, so I just dropped off onto this planet and I'm in this district. What does that mean?
Sure. So that provides support for families who may want to buy a home, may want to be able to afford their rent along with their utility bills. So the way it does that is from age 0, it recognizes the fact that we need as a government to put more support into childcare. It also supports the childcare businesses who operate on a shoestring to be able to work with the way they do their staffing so that kids from age 0 can be in childcare, that their teachers who work with them can really get the highest level of credentials and being able to be supported through that. And then the third leg is the businesses will be able to have really the tools that they need for successful learning. What does this do long term?
Yeah.
It gets eyes on kids much earlier if they have health issues, that obviously the earlier you get help with health, the better the outcomes. It looks at our education system moving forward so that as a state, we can continue to be the competitive #1 that Massachusetts likes to be. So that's just one thing. Lots of things. I'm speaking later this week on a fusion energy conference.
Really?
Really looking at more energy sources that are good for the planet, that particularly on the Cape, where we kind of have this very tough kind of fence we're trying to walk through, because we want to sort of not be so reliant on carbon sources of energy. Wind energy is moving ahead, but we also have that thing where our power goes out.
And so we live in Sandwich. Yes, it does.
Right? and so we really want to get down to the fact that, how do we, as a community, be able to afford that? And then, you look at our tourism-based economy, we want to switch more to electric cars. Well, we have to make chargers more available so that folks who come here, folks who live here, can plug in their cars while they're at the library, while they're, doing their business.
But didn't the federal government do this big, the big bill, oh my God, it just went out of my head. That's a sign of old age.
Oh, no, the infrastructure.
The infrastructure, that they were going to put them across the country, right?
That's true.
Chargers.
Yes, but it's been a little bit of a slow roll because there, we do want there to be a lot of intention in the design. So terrific folks on the Cape, Dorothy Savarese, and others.
You can't get any better than Dorothy.
Exactly. So they're looking at the, in terms of climate, studying where they should be, the most economical places, where our current infrastructures, so the money that will be coming to the Cape for that project will be able to be stretched and as essential and efficient as possible. So we're ready for that.
It's funny because my son has an all-electric. He has an all-electric Mustang,
Cool.
which looks like something from Knight Rider or something. It's black and black wheels and whatever. And he's in real estate, so he does travel around a lot. But as he said, in Rhode Island, he so far hasn't had any problem finding a charger. His kid goes to college. My granddaughter goes to college in Plymouth, New Hampshire, and so he has to time it where he's going to be. He can almost make it there on one charge, but it's from Rhode Island, southern Rhode Island. It's kind of a hike, so he always has to stop and charge. But so far, he said he's been fortunate. He finds them because it does become a little bit of a game.
It is. I do it myself. I have an all-electric. I go to the State House in the winter.
Because
charges
it go down.
much fewer miles, many fewer miles. And so I just can make it to the State House and back. If I have a speaking engagement or something else, then I've got to spend some of my day figuring out where to plug in. But when you're in Boston, of course, that may include a $40 parking charge as well. So, these are the things, as the chargers become more available, then more people will be sort of brave enough to handle the logistics of electric cars.
Right. And this is going to go off subject ever so slightly. But there's been a lot of talk about the two bridges. Mm-hmm. And I know I'm kind of throwing this at you because we hadn't talked about this before. But I'm just kind of interested. I know they're redoing the Bourne Rotary, which I don't quite get that, but maybe it has something to do when they finally put in another bridge. I don't know.
So very prescient question. In fact, today, right after this interview, I am sort of re-engaging my conversations where I bring together the town of Bourne, DOT, Army Corps, state police, local police, and Cape Cod Commission to really vet what the plans are, when they're going to begin. There have been quotes in the newspapers about, we don't want to make the tourism summer season, high season, burdened by the construction. So there's a commitment to work around that, which sounds great. But what about now? And what about families trying to get kids to school, parents trying to get to work? It's hard to anticipate what the disruption will be. But having these conversations that I started having during the last weeks of the Bourne and the Sagamore, people are asking, is this even necessary? Can we just have a break from the constant, construction? Because, it not only affects our daily lives, but it affects, it burdens our businesses, and especially the small businesses. So by having these conversations, I hope to give the community opportunities to make suggestions in real time and to further the understanding by the folks who are moving forward this initiative, what, at least on the edges, what we can do to improve the experience for folks here. So that actually starts today, very prescient.
Oh, well, just tell them that Sandwich goes to gridlock every day at 4:00 when they're working on the bridges.
I sure will.
It is amazing. And I understand, people use Waze, that lovely app that I hate, so that when you come up Cotuit, you go out somewhere, let's say you go to Mashpee and you're coming back, and at 4:00, at 4:00 now, there's traffic galore on 130. But when you're coming back and you think, okay, well, I have to go over to Cotuit or something, and so you come back on Cotuit Road, oh my gosh, it's bumper to bumper in the summer because they're using Waves. So they're sending people through neighborhoods.
And that was an issue when
it's been an issue.
when the Bourne was done, and my conversations actually were able to address the community concerns, and we made some improvements.
Oh, that's great.
But, these bridges are going to, we know we have a bid out on the Sagamore.
Right.
We want to be sure the administration for Massachusetts, the governor, understands that there are two bridges. We do not want the Bourne left behind.
Right.
We know how difficult it's going to be to get funding for Sagamore, but Massachusetts has kind of put some skin in the game, some big funding on that. Yeah. But we also want to be sure that We know the T is having some huge issues and needs a lot of money.
Oh, my goodness.
We want to be sure that the bridges do not fall behind in the attention that they need
Right.
because of all of the jockeying of these competing projects. So we want to continue to have those great conversations. The governor was terrific in having Quentin Paul free, who's from the Cape.
Yeah.
He's a leader in the conversation. So I'm really optimistic as we move forward that we're going to continue to get the funding and the attention that we need coming up quickly for the bridges to Cape Cod, which are our lifelines.
Well, that's absolutely correct. And I keep going, oh my God, what are we going to do if they close them down? What if they have to close them down, or they do so many cars per day, or so much weight per day going across the bridge, which could also happen with big trucks. Is there a possibility of ever having some sort of ferry service, at least to Plymouth, and you could hop on the T there or hop on the train to go into town, the commuter rail. A lot of questions coming up. It's kind of like we're growing up in a bizarre kind of way.
It is.
It's like growing
happening
pains.
sort of quickly.
Yeah.
We're handling tough issues. The Senate just got through its version of the gun bill, which the House did months earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was such an interesting process. For me, I met, for those that couldn't come to the meeting, had follow-up conversations with every single one of my police chiefs. And the Senate President, Karen Spilka, assigned the majority leader, Cindy Cream, to make sure that every senator had an opportunity to talk about what the Senate gun bill would look like.
Mm-hmm.
And because there was a feeling coming from the House that there wasn't really maybe enough time, and so we allowed that. And the bill itself, first of all, we had the police organizations in favor of the Senate bill standing right next to the Senate President and Majority Leader Cream rolling it out. I know that from the Cape side of my district, I handle 8 towns, 4 on the Plymouth side, 4 on the Cape side.
Right.
And we had terrific conversations right in that wonderful Bourne police station conference room. And lots of people were sort of putting on the table in terms of the chiefs what they thought was most important. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we heard over and over is, let's not focus as much, with some exceptions, like ghost guns, on new rules.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that we enforce the laws on the books.
Sure.
And make sure that we support the judges in enforcing those laws. And let's make sure we don't make things so complicated that it's difficult for the police on the ground who are doing the job to actually be able to enforce all these laws. So we looked at, I think something certainly on ghost guns is going to move forward. When we looked at red flag laws, that was something that was
That's
very
the scariest one,
very common concern.
especially after Maine.
Yes, after Maine, and in so many events across the country, especially in schools.
Yeah.
And really looking at, one of the chiefs had a terrific suggestion that I brought forward, which was the fact that a lot of times the data collection isn't complete. So when our chiefs have a gun permit renewal, for example,
Right.
they want to be sure that they know the history of the person who's asking for the renewal, so that they can, as safely as possible, support the gun laws that they are really in charge of moving forward and in terms of permitting. And so that's something that I think everyone agrees with. If you look at the mental health issues that are going forward, the police want to be sure that they have appropriate access to issues where there are concerns for people who do get guns. They want to know the situation that they're walking into. So
Sure.
These are things that are pretty self-evident that I think is really emblematic of the way the Senate bill came out.
And it's not going against guns.
Mhm.
That's not saying you can't have a gun.
Mhm.
It just says, like, you register your car or you have a driver's license, that you register the gun. And I don't know why people get their hair catches on fire over that. I mean, if you kill somebody with your car and it's registered to you, you're responsible. If you're driving it, you're responsible. If you kill somebody with a gun, you're responsible. It's the same thing, isn't it? Or am I making it too simplistic?
No.
I could be.
I think at core, that's right. I think there's a lot of agreement on, grandmothers.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
that group. And, for lawful gun owners, it's a longstanding right. And, people want to be sure that rights are protected. But there is a recognition that in this country there have been far too many deaths as a result of guns. And so we want to be sure that they are legally obtained. We want to be sure that people who should not have guns, if they have mental health issues, for example, that there is a way to protect people in those circumstances. We want to be sure children are safe in school.
Sure.
We want to, one of the things I think you'll see in conference committee is where should guns be allowed? There'll be, so that the House brought its bill forward, the Senate brought its bill forward. There now will be a conference committee about putting those ideas together, and then votes to bring it before the governor. And, when we look at public places, so places with voting, for example, should there be guns where people vote? Well, that's something that, most people agree on, or at least a large population do. But you look at the job of police officers. Police officers, many will tell you, we're never off duty. We are entrusted with the public's trust, and a firearm is one of the tools that we use.
Right.
We certainly use tools like talking to folks. We're trained in exigent circumstances to be able to really lower the temperature in a situation that may be threatening. Those are the tools we value highly. But they want to be sure that they are allowed to carry in public places where they will be, certainly there's a possibility they will be called upon to act. And so that's where the conversations, have been super helpful in terms of really getting the officer's viewpoint, as well as bringing that forward to see if this bill can really come together with the House and the Senate as something that most people agree on.
I can understand that, but does that go back to the old thing with, it wouldn't have happened if a good guy had had a gun, that saying, which, I mean, police officers are in 99.99999% are good guys, right? I mean, there's always that little fringe out there. They're good guys. So you're right, I could see where they should, because they have a license to carry and they're with the institution of being a police officer, that they would be allowed. However, does that mean that a private investigator or anybody could go into an area with voting, although there are police officers there, standing watch? And we live in a I always call us a bubble state. And we're a bubble state, not that bad things don't happen here and people do get killed. I mean, obviously we hear about it all the time, the gun situation. But I have been a poll worker. I'm not afraid of somebody coming in and shooting up where I'm working. I just don't have that fear because we're that kind of community,
Right.
Not that we don't have nut cases, which I will admit I'm probably one of them. So, and anybody will tell you. I don't worry about that. However, I worry about, I also worry, what I just said, can anybody have the gun in a public place? If you go to the southern states, and my husband and I have traveled through the South a lot, it's more than being now in the back of the pickup truck. You see the gun rack. It's more than that now. In North Carolina, there's signs on the banks. Please don't bring your guns in the bank. I don't know if I want to live in a state that's like that.
Well, and Massachusetts has been in the forefront of having strict gun rules.
Yes.
And I
Thank
think
you.
part of that,
Thank you,
right?
legislator.
And part of that is why I think you have this feeling of being safe, where you don't have guns all around. And you know, people, you know, it's when you have a conversation about rights, you know, people that are afraid of their rights being taken away, I think do, you know, get louder, and they don't want that, you know, that kind of boundary to be moved. But what we need to focus on is gun safety.
Yeah.
And when a chief of police issues a gun permit, they want to know the entire situation as they issue that permit. When a police officer gets called to a scene, they want to know what they could be facing. So, you know, those are the things that the Senate version focused on. Also, who gets guns like in FedEx and may end up at that bank or that polling place. So there have been, you know, part of the Senate bill really looked at tracking how those pieces get put together, so that we don't have these sort of homemade people that, without being licensed, they were able to, you know, make a gun, or, you know, have a 3D printer.
Well, that's what I was
kind
going
of
to say,
thing.
the 3D printers. I mean, that's really scary, that you can actually, I mean, you can 3D print houses, which would be a good thing.
Right.
But with the bad things that you can do with it are really quite amazing.
And so that's what this bill looks at addressing. And that's why the state police were right with the legislators in the Senate version moving forward. This is something that we think addresses most of our concerns, especially for our officers, who are our front line of protection for the community. So, you know, it remains to be seen what will come out of the conference committee. But I think the process was really much better this time. And,
that's great.
that's, you know, we need to be having these conversations.
Yeah, and it's not an easy one, because people get their hackles up. You're going to take something away from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly don't want to take anything away from anybody. I just don't want you to bring it into my house. They're not in my house.
Right.
And I don't want you to bring them into my house. And my husband feels the same way. Yet I grew up in the Midwest in Ohio. My dad and brother went hunting on Thanksgiving morning. It was the thing to do. I think I said before, I don't know that they ever brought anything home, but it was always the thought of. But those guns were locked up in a cabinet, you know, down in the fruit cellar, where nobody would ever get to them, you know, or touch them.
Right, and that's so important, especially with children around. You want to be sure that, you know, guns that are licensed, first of all, that they are properly licensed, and that they are properly secured. My dad was a former Air Force guy in a wheelchair. He was a vet, and he was an outdoorsman. And for the, you know, the feeling of freedom it gave him, he loved to go on hunts, and actually brought back quite a bit. And as I wasn't even quite a red meat person, so that was like, oh, thanks, great dad. But I would, you know, as the oldest girl, I would get to accompany him.
Sure.
I would go to the hunting clubs, you know, he'd be teaching me how to shoot a rifle and say, watch out, there's going to be a kick to it. And, you know, the hunting club, you know, the kids would be involved in egg tosses, and, you know, it was, you know, a lot of people have a sport use in addition to a hunting use. So they, you know, those are things that all, I think, have to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, and they do. And my recollection of me holding a gun was a BB gun sitting on a hill above our cow barn, which had little windows, and it was the perfect place to sit and shoot those BBs. And you would shoot it and go ping, because they wouldn't break the window until they did. Uh-oh. And I got in such trouble. So maybe that's what colors me on guns, is how much trouble I got in for shooting the windows out of the cow barn. Could be.
Great story.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I wish I could say I was making it up, but I'm not. It was really true. How dumb can you get? Yeah, it was a Daisy Air rifle. So you have so much on your plate. So you have this gun thing, right?
Right.
which is, when's it going to all be wrapped up, or do you have any idea?
You know, it's hard to tell how long the conference committee will take, but you'll see it certainly this term.
Oh, that's excellent. That's good. And then you just passed the children's thing, or that's coming out of
There have been
conference?
some good things passed for support for kids in education, but that I believe that will be coming before the legislature, before the end of this term. I'm very hopeful. We're also working very hard, for example, on choice in dying. There have been,
Oh,
you know,
that's
it's been around
wonderful.
for years, and you know, as a daughter of a handicapped person, I've been very ardent in terms of listening to the handicap groups that had concerns about the way the bill was written originally. Those things have been addressed, and we're looking hopefully at bringing that before a vote. We've got, I think, a little more work to do with, you know, in the House, but I think in the Senate you might see that as well.
So will it be, is it fashioned after, I think it's Washington State that has that kind of a
Washington,
law.
I think Oregon maybe.
And Oregon as well. Will it be fashioned after, is it fashioned after those, or is it a complete standalone?
It definitely fashioned, I think I would say yes. And it's also been, you know, kind of updated to look at those experiences in those communities, so that, you know, any kind of reticence has been addressed. And so, you know, once, you know, you learn from experience, you take the best thoughts and hopefully improve them.
Right. Well, that would be a wonderful thing as well. Certainly. Now, let's talk about Sue Moran. What are you up to?
So I am finishing my term.
I know you
it's
are.
the best job in the world. I've really, you know, been privileged to be able to take what I learned in Cape Cod in government and bring that to the State House. And I'm going to continue those relationships and then focus more locally on running for the clerk of courts for Barnstable County, which is managing the Superior Court. And I've been a litigator for 30 years all over the country in courts from the West Coast, East Coast.
Is that right?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
So it brings together everything that I know, and along with my relationships on Beacon Hill, to continue to support that. I mean, I just met with Maura Doyle, who's the clerk of the Supreme Judicial Court. What an incredible role model. So I'm doing a lot of learning in this part before the campaign really gets going.
So I hate to be so stupid, but what does a clerk do?
So that it's really the front-facing administrator for the court system. So if, you know, some people come, it's oftentimes the worst day of their lives, whether they've been arrested, someone is suing them, or they're suing because they want something back. And it's an opportunity for me to be sure that system has the resources it needs, runs efficiently as it needs. It's, you know, it's taxpayer based, and I'm an economics girl, so I like things to be, you know, efficient. And it also, you know, I want to bring that level of customer service up where we have, you know, young people who may want to do legal related work are able to have their, you know, come and see and maybe intern, and also solidify the work that the DA, Rob Galliboy, is doing, the sheriff, and sort of have that third corner of the triangle well taken care of.
Well, excellent. Well, it sounds good. You know, I just heard about a clerk just because of the national news that came up with the various things that are going on in national news. And they talked about the clerk. And I at that point, I wondered, well, what in the heck does a clerk do? Because you have the judge, but does each judge have their own personal clerk as well?
They do in the courtroom. There's someone assigned, but the position that I'm seeking electorate
is
for
the big one.
Is the big one. And you look at if there is a important legal challenge, whether it has to do with voting or otherwise, you want to be sure that case is really well handled and handled expeditiously in that Superior Court system.
Excellent. Wow. Well, it sounds like it's going to be a big thing for you.
And I will serve this community and this job right to the very end, very ardently.
And are you, would you be located here on the Cape?
Yes,
The next
it's
one?
right in
Oh my gosh, so
Barnstable.
you don't have that commute.
Which right now I'm headed to a meeting to be sure that everyone's commute is the best
better.
it can be.
I know. And we have a storm coming in tomorrow. Oh my gosh, and it's across the board. You would, again, people's hair is on fire. Our first snowfall, we live in New England, and we're finally having a significant snow.
Nor'easter.
I know. And I kind of look forward to it. You know, maybe everything I have to do tomorrow will be canceled. That's what I'm hoping for.
I know. There's a really great broadband meeting tomorrow. I'm hoping it's not canceled. I'm hoping the snow comes right after, so we'll see.
Yeah. Well, aren't they doing, can't they do those things by Zoom though, as we did during COVID?
Yes, absolutely, but I don't know. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing everyone.
Oh, is that, well, see, that's it. You know, after COVID, I think we all feel that way.
That's right.
I don't mind meeting in person at all. I prefer it to Zoom. I got to the point where I hated Zoom.
Yeah.
Because there's something about the
being in
physical-
Hollywood Squares.
I know.
Just that whole.
I know, raise your hand. I know, and you're on mute. You're on
right.
mute.
Yes, still.
Your camera went off, you know, that kind of thing. So anyway, well, you have a full plate for sure. Absolutely sure. So I wish you the best. You're not going to be a stranger, are you?
Oh, I'll be right here.
All right. So we're going to have you back so you can talk
Thank
about being
you.
a clerk.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Sue.
Thanks, Melinda.
Good to see you.
You too.
Wow, Sue Moran, our state senator, she talked to us about so many issues here on the Cape that affect the state and the Cape. So I want to thank you for being here today, and we'll see you next time on another Cape Conversations.